When Tibor Kupferstein, or Ted as he likes us to call him, enters the room, the first thing we notice is his beaming smile. He looks like he has won the lottery every single time he sees us. Honestly, we've come to learn that Ted feels this joyous about life in general. He is the definition of an optimist, and his positive attitude is infectious. We are always laughing when we are with him. Ted, dapper in his button-down shirt, slacks, and his famous sweater vests, has bundles of papers stuffed into all available pockets, reminding him of the countless meetings, jobs, and appointments he has on his ever-growing to-do list. With a noticeable pep in his step and an unforgettable laugh, Ted makes every moment one to treasure.
Dear Ted, I miss you. I'm living in a time when I can't tell if I'm sitting in the comfort or the confines of my own home, and I find myself thinking of you. With the absence of school, I have to motivate myself to pray on my own, to wake up and put on tefillin every single morning, to say Shema each night. And with most synagogues and communities shut down, it seems even harder to find a connection to God, even on the holiest day of the week. Yet a connection to God, it's what I yearn for right now. A God to call out to lean on when I feel crippled, to be the source of my faith in a time when we have boundless religious freedom, yet we're unable to use it. My mind often wanders to your father, whom you told us risked his life to form a secret minyan in the Jew house where your family was imprisoned when the Nazis invaded your community in Budapest. How he clung to his faith as his friends and family members were shuttled out of their neighborhoods like cattle, and as the unknown horizon in their future began to take the shape of a certain death. A minyan was your father's spiritual outlet, an escape from the madness around him. I think of how you must have felt back then. You, Ted, a young teenager watching your father's bravery as he led the minyan every morning and afternoon, feeling how his faith created hope inside of you that even the bleakest of situations would turn out okay. Until that fateful day when you and your family were moved into the ghetto. You told us how you cried that day when you were pulled out of the Jew house and marched with your family into a new kind of imprisonment. You cried because your father lost his minyan. You cried for your neighbor, Mrs. Citron, whose 3-year-old daughter was left behind as her entire family was sent to the ghetto. You cried because she was too young to survive on her own. You cried because she was too young to pray for herself. You cried because you couldn't even pray for yourselves anymore. With no home, no food, and no minyan, life worsened each day. You longed for your tefillin, for the Jewish pride that had been replaced by a revolting yellow star that branded you unworthy of life. A few weeks later, you were deported from the ghetto with your father, and together, praying under your breath for 2 sleepless days of non-stop walking, you survived the hellish death march to Mauthausen concentration camp. You recounted to us the utter horror as people all around you dropped to the ground from frostbite, hunger, and exhaustion, and were then shot by the Nazi officers, just for good measure. Shoulder to shoulder with your father the entire time, the struggle to keep moving began to feel impossible, as the only thing that held you up was your skeleton, which itself felt as if it would crumple. You thought this would be your end. Step after step, step after step, grasping for any kind of nourishment that would keep you going. And instinctively, you prayed, silently and slowly, word after word, clinging to life through your prayer. I wonder how you remembered that even if you couldn't turn around, you could turn to God. I wonder how you felt as you whispered the Shema to yourself. I wonder if, somehow, you could feel that little Siddur you were hiding under your clothes pushing you to go on. I wonder if your father felt your prayers shudder from your body through his, and if he felt proud, knowing that his faith and hope was not left behind in the Jew house, but rather that it was alive and it was strong in his own son. I wonder how you felt saying, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. As your first day in Mauthausen came to a close, and you were finally allowed to sit and rest for the first time in days, you came upon the most bizarre scene unfolding in the barracks. A group of men had gathered in a circle and were discussing how to commemorate the first night of Hanukkah.
Hanukkah?
Someone exclaimed.
We sit here, a group of half-dead men, a group of breathing skeletons, and you speak of Hanukkah?
Of course.
Another answered.
I am alive, am I not? And I have an oil pill and a match, and I'll be damned if we don't use them as our menorah.
And that's what they did, and then they sang Ma'oz Tzur and danced around the flame. You couldn't believe what you were seeing, and then your gaze became consumed by that tiny flame, and it reminded you of all you had lost. The flames of your mother's Shabbos candles, the strong fire of the Havdalah candle, the Ner Tamid in your synagogue, the warmth of your home, and your childhood. But in that burning flame, you also saw another glimmer of hope, the hope of undying faith and the strength that comes with the connection to God that no one would ever be able to steal from you. And that faith is what you carried with you out of Mauthausen on the treacherous journey back to Budapest and into the glass house, where you and your family were ultimately saved by the efforts of righteous Gentiles Karl Lutz and Raoul Wallenberg. Your faith always made you feel that you had so much, even when you had hardly anything. In this moment in time, when I have less than I'd like to have, and can't do everything I'd like to do, I think of you, Ted. I think of what you stand for. I think of how lucky we are to be able to turn to those around us and to God at the same time. I think of how lucky I am to be able to pray out loud, even if my synagogue is temporarily closed, and how lucky I am to put on tefillin every morning, even if for the time being, there is no minyan. I think of what it means to live on faith. I think of what it means to be a Jew, a proud Jew. I think of you, and I miss you. With great respect, Noam.
His faith isn't the only thing Ted shows us is limitless. He himself is limitless, as it seems that at the age of 92, there really is nothing our friend Ted can't do. Skiing throughout the winter, and water skiing during the summer, even Ted's grandchildren can't seem to keep up with him. Ted prays with a minyan every morning, and then goes to his warehouse, which we can vouch for is like its own museum of art and vintage artifacts collected over Ted's lifetime. But of all his amazing attributes and accomplishments, Ted is most proud that he is a Jew, and that he can freely and proudly pass his religious beliefs and practices down to 3 generations that are here today because of his bravery and his undying faith.